Hi, this is CS170. I'm doing a quick video to go through some common thoughts or ideas around flowcharts and pseudocode. You might find helpful either for the assignment 5 or you might find helpful just in general. So it's a couple points I want to make and maybe I can display a little bit more. But there's the concepts of like all these different types of compute, right? So if you have something where you want to do a calculate, let's say the sales tax on something, so you have all of the different items, you add them together, and then you compute sales tax by multiplying by a percentage and stuff like that. So, and this shows it here on the pseudocode reference guide and examples. You would compute and then you would actually show the detailed calculation, right? It'll be num1 plus num2, right? You don't just say compute sales tax, right? If you just say compute sales tax, that's not detailed enough. So I've seen a couple of people working on different assignments where they just label it as a compute something at a high level number. That's not enough for either on the flowchart or in your pseudocode. So just like it shows here, you see the detailed calculations here, right? Like add 1 to number 1 or subtract 1 from number 1. You can have multiply and stuff like that. The other thing you might want to notice is this idea of nesting, right? So these conditional if then else, right? And look down here, you can see stuff like this where you have your conditional and then do something else, you want to do something else, and then there's another else down here. So this is important, right? This is different than just listing like 3 different if statements, right? So there's a different flow of the program, there's different computation actually happening. And I'll kind of try to show you an example of that, okay? So with that in mind, let me go through this. I think the first thing is I'm going to talk about this if and if else and if type of thing. And just to kind of draw a distinction here, and then you can see how you can apply it to your assignments. Okay, so let's say I'm going to a restaurant, let's say a fast food place, and I want to order food. So they might ask me, what do you want to order? So maybe I want to order a burger, fries, and a drink. Okay, so usually the fact that I order a burger or fries or a drink are 3 independent questions, right? So you're going to ask this. Probably the cashier is probably going to ask you this independently. Say, okay, you want a burger, you want fries with that, you want a drink, right? So those are 3 independent questions. So in that case, you know, it will be something like this, where it's like, if, let's say, burger equals to yes, and then let's say I declared a variable of food amount equals, let's say, 1.50. And then and if. Okay, and then you go to the next one. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this guy over, something like that, right? And then the next one would be fries something like that. Plus 0.90. Okay, so and just note that I took a shortcut here. I just kind of said the food. I did the actual calculation, something like this, right? But when you're actually doing it, you're actually going to do like a compute, right? So you actually do the compute and show this, right? It would be like in this case, this is the first question. You would just initialize or set the amount to be that, right? Then you have something like this. If it got to here, it's probably going to be, well, it's definitely going to be 0 if you didn't order a burger, right? But if it's a burger, then it'll be $1.50, right? So you'll have 1.5 in here, and then you'll add to itself something like this, okay? And then if you have the drink, it'll add again, like 90 cents to the drink. So you'll come out with a total here. So this is like a basic logic where you're asking independent questions, one right after the other, okay? So let me think about, let's say, the other scenario where the questions are actually related to each other. Like one question happens because of the other one, right? So let's say I do get the burger, right? So I get the burger, and you want to know what kind of toppings you want on the burger, right? So I'm gonna have to type this. Let me say burger toppings. So if the burger topping equals to pickles, well, actually I shouldn't say that. If burger topping equals to, yeah, let me do pickles. Then just say order okay. So if I do an else here, and what else can you put on top? Okay, maybe you can put bacon, right? So else, and let me just put a end if down here so I don't lose track of this. So sometimes with the nested else statements, it can get like a little bit confusing, but you have to remember to close these things off, right? So you have this else, then and then you have else, something else, and then you have an end if, right? So I'm going to put another if statement in here. If bacon equals to yes, okay, and you say toppings equals. So you see I closed off the end of here with this, right? So I tried to line them up. Was off a little bit, but so this is how I can keep from getting confused here. So this is kind of a nested if-else in here and whatnot, right? Now I recognize this example is a little bit contrived, right? Because this is basically saying that these things are mutually exclusive, right? You can't have pickles and bacon, right? And of course that's not really true. I just do this as setting of example. So let's say that you can do pickles, and if you get pickles, that's it, right? But if you don't get pickles, then you can choose to add bacon on here, right? So this type of flow doesn't really support you to have pickles and bacon, but like I said, this is just an example to show how you have something with this type of flow versus this type of flow at the top, where you can ask one thing right after another independent of each other. Right, so in this case, you would have, you could have a burger, and you can have fries, and you can have a drink, right? This is a different type of flow where if you choose the first option, the other ones are taken off the table, right? So again, I know this is a little bit of a contrived example, but this is to try to show the difference between these type of flows. So these are typical or common types of logic or conditional logic that you would see. And like I said, do remember that I didn't put the compute in here, but you guys, when you're doing this, you should be using compute. Okay? So try to match that, follow along with this, right, in terms of showing the details, doing the compute. And notice, of course, I didn't do some of this other stuff here, this initialization, right? Set the value to 0. That's what I should have done here, right? So up at the top, I should have done set food amount equals to 0, right? Or to 0, okay? So hopefully this kind of gives you a general idea of this. Let me go to like a flowchart and see if we can quickly show something on a flowchart to show how this might look like on a flowchart. Okay, so if this was this flow here where you're asking one question after another, so you have your input, right? So I am gonna ask the question, food, okay, input. So basically I'm just writing down, I could be writing down what they're taking, what they want to order at the cashier. Here, get this up to here. Okay, over to here, here, like that. So I'm basically asking 3 questions in a row. Let me get this up to here. Get this guy in here, here. Okay, so I'm not gonna write all of these guys out, but just match this up to this, right? So I input what the order is. I'm gonna ask them, you want a burger, you want fries, you want a drink, right? So it's like 3 different questions in a row, 1, 2, 3, and they're all independent. You're always gonna ask these questions no matter what, okay? And if you say yes to any of those, you're gonna have this stuff off to the side. Right, so you're going to branch off, you're going to do your computation here, and come back to here, ask the question, branch off if you do it. So let's say I got the burger. If I got the burger, I'm going to do this calculation, add that to the total, bring it back to here, come back here, ask the question, do you want fries? Go over to here, come back over, back down, and then do you want a drink? And actually I don't have to, yeah, I do have to do that. So I have to here, go back to here, and see here. So once you got done with this last question, you come back down to here, you know, here. Okay, so it kind of goes all the way through this processing here, and you might want to display your order now, right? So you're back to here. This is your output, so you're going to display here. Order totals. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so that's what a general flow would be for something like this. Now, if you're going to do the if-else, it's going to be slightly different. Okay, I think the easiest thing to do is kind of back this out a little bit. So now this would be a question where if you ask the one question and if they say no, then you're going to go to another decision. But that decision doesn't happen if you say yes. So in that case, I'm going to move this to here. Okay, I'm just going to type in here quick. So pickles. Okay, so if I chose to do pickles, so if I say yes, then I'm just going to shoot straight down here and bypass this other logic over to here. But I say no to pickles, then I'm going to come over to here and I'm going to ask bacon. And let's say on the bacon question, you say yes. So if you say yes, that means you bring it back down to this main branch of processing, this logic here, right? Else, if it's no, then you're going to set toppings to be none. So you'll have this other arrow here. Something like that, and then okay, so this is the general flow. Just say I'm setting toppings to none. Okay, now I did this very quickly, so just one thing to note, you see I did this process to set toppings to none, right? Once I made the decisions here, I should have done that here also, right? So when I said pickles, yeah, I should have said pickles, yes, and then toppings to none. So I should have like a little box here, rectangle here to say toppings to none, right? Same thing here with the bacon. Once I said yes to bacon, then I should have a little box here saying toppings to bacon. But I just kind of put this together for you quickly so you can see what the flow is on something like this. Where if you select one thing as yes, you basically bypass the remaining questions here. Okay, so these are the two general cases. Note what I just said. The compute part where you show the details. Note this part with the nested if-else statements and how that applied to the flowchart. So these are the things that you should pay attention to. I think it will cover a lot of the questions that you are having about how to represent this. Okay, take a look at this and give me a shout if you have any questions.